Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Masters of Business at Business Blueprint. My name's John Di Natale, and today I'm very excited to talk to you about how to develop the mindset for 1,000% growth in your business. Here's what we're going to cover over the next little while, so I hope you'll follow along, and I'm sure you'll get some great tips and some practical things that you can use in your business right away. We're going to look at why the right mindset is critical for your business. We'll also cover off a story of a small business that actually went global and some of the things that they thought through and how they approached some of the barriers that are typical to taking a small business into the global arena. We'll look at the big think mindset and how that works. We'll also look at why people resist thinking big and why we tend to hold ourselves back. How to develop a big and compelling vision for your business is one of the challenges for everybody, so we can motivate and inspire ourselves and our team, so we'll have a look at that. And the 7 main drivers of growth and profit in every business. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we'll look at the disciplines of implementation and how to stay focused, because we know that if we don't implement, or as we like to say, if you don't get shit done, nothing happens. So implementation is critical, and we're certainly going to talk a little more about that towards the end of the presentation. So let's get started, shall we? Why is the right mindset critical for your business? I'm sure you've seen athletes prior to a big event. If you've watched the Olympics or you've watched any major sporting event, you'll see athletes creating a positive visualization of their performance. So what they're trying to do is get into the mindset of ultimate performance. So when we think about mindset, there's a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. One is that most business owners, I believe, think too small. And what I mean by that is that we generally don't set huge growth targets for our business. We tend to work on 10% or 15%. It's very rare to find a business owner that will say, this year we want to be 1,000% bigger than we are today. We want to 10x our business. Pretty rare. We'll talk a little more about why that is as we head through this little presentation. But I want to touch on a story for you right now of a business that actually overcame some of those mindset barriers and how they took their business to a very successful global business. You may not have heard of this business. It's a business called Quad Lock. Quad Lock was invented by 2 guys out of Melbourne. They started a business and started thinking about what the barriers for business are taking a business global. So if you think about the key barriers to growing a business, let's talk about what they are. The typical ones are we don't have the capital, we don't have access to our market, and we need a massive advertising budget. So when you think about the way business operates today, many of those barriers can be more easily overcome than they could have been 15 or 20 years ago. And that's exactly what one of the founders of Quad Lock, a guy called Rob Ward, who I was speaking to just a little while ago, was discussing with me when he said, you know, we thought about what it would take to grow our business on a global level, and we thought, okay, well, we need capital. So if you look at how we raise capital today, it's quite different to how we did it 20 years ago. There are capital funding platforms that we can use, you know, the Possibles of the world and the crowdfunding type platforms that we can use. So Rob's comment was, you know, we saw that the barrier of capital was no longer a barrier. We wanted to get to our market, we wanted to talk to our customers, and we wanted to engage with those customers, and that was difficult to do prior, but now it's much easier. We have social media, we have YouTube, we have ways of reaching our customers that we didn't have available to us before. And then we also have the ability to advertise and promote and really do that on quite a small budget. So these guys saw that the barriers to growing their business really had disappeared in many ways, and so they set about creating a product that would revolutionize the way that people use their iPhone when they're on the move. And this little Quad Lock case that you can see is a little device that's, you know, goes onto your bicycle, and you can lock your phone on there, and then you can take it off and pop it in your pocket, and off you go. So a really simple product, and yet it's gone on to become very, very popular worldwide. We now have celebrities using it all over the world. They've been posting about it and tweeting about it, and they've been working their way through that. It's become extremely popular, and this has gone from a small business, you know, 2 or 3 years ago to a business that this year is on track to do about $9 million in revenue. So you can see that some of the barriers that we used to put in front of ourselves from a thought process have actually disappeared, and we need to think differently about how we go about that. I did ask the founders what was next for them. And basically they said, well, more of the same. We're going to work on other products. We're going to work on diversifying the exact same approach of the product that we're using, and we're going to actually develop new products but using the same technology and the same process. So it's actually doing more of the same and getting depth in our market as opposed to diversifying and trying to get into all sorts of other things that we may not be ready to do just yet. So there's a quick story of a business that didn't let the typical thinking of, well, look, I don't have enough money, I don't have, I have the barriers to starting my business. They just got on with it, which was the other thing that Rob conveyed to me, actually. He said, the thing that you have to do in business is just start. Don't be thinking too long, don't be talking too long, just start and learn as you go, which is probably very good advice. Okay, so let's talk about the big thinking mindset and how that applies to you in your business. I've had the opportunity to work with many business owners all over the world in the last 10 or 15 years. And when I work with small businesses, I find that there's one thing in common, and that is that most small business owners, in my view, think too small. Let me give you an example. If you are in your business and you're the owner of your business, it's more than likely that you want growth for the year ahead. Would that be a fair assumption? I think so. So you might sit down with your team and you might say, look, we want to achieve 20% growth for this year. And the process normally goes something like this. As you start to discuss that around the table with your team, the sales team will say, well, it's kind of getting tough out there. There's a lot of competition. There are more products like ours in the marketplace. It's going to be tougher for us to sell, to reach that 20% growth. And then the production team will come along and they'll say, well, it's kind of getting hard now. We're at the maximum of our production. We have to scale up. We have to invest in production facilities. It's going to be harder for us to actually achieve that growth. And your distribution team will say, well, it's actually harder to get them out to the marketplace and we've got to advertise and do more. And what happens is the creative mindset, if you like, starts to become one of barriers as opposed to one of growth. And usually the small business owner will then settle for 5 or 6 or 7% growth or 10% growth. It's rare that they will push for 1,000% or 100, even 100%. Now, I'm not suggesting that you'll achieve 1,000% growth, but I'll talk a little later about why it's important to think that way and how that actually affects the decisions that you make in your business as you grow. Let's have a look at a couple of historical big thinkers, shall we? Because when I encourage people to think big, it's always good to have a role model to look towards. You may recognize these two gentlemen, you may not, I don't know. The gentleman on the left of the screen is Henry Ford. Now, Henry Ford thought about things a little differently. If you recall, what was it that Henry Ford really developed? It was the production line methodology. Yeah. So Henry Ford, way back, they were producing about 270,000 cars per year using the old methodology. And Henry thought there must be a better way to do this. There must be a more effective way, a more efficient way. There must be a smoother way to get this done so we can actually scale up and produce a lot more cars. And so he developed this production line methodology which said, we're going to break this production process down and we'll get people to specialize in this area. We'll just get them to be really good at doing the trim, for instance, in the motor car, and they'll do that more effectively, and more efficiently. And then we'll have someone else who's really good at the paint work and someone who can assemble the drive line, and we'll break that up and we'll have a system and a process that actually moves through. As the vehicle moves through, each of those people can add their particular expertise in that area. And what did that do? It revolutionized the way that cars were built. It meant that they went from a couple of 100,000 cars to literally millions of cars over the course of about a decade. Okay, and if Henry Ford had not thought about something other than the current methodology, that wouldn't have come about. So that's what big thinking does. It forces you to think outside the current mindset, and it creates opportunity for you to invent things and develop new ways of doing things and ways of doing things better. The gentleman on the right you may not recognize so much, but you'll certainly recognize his contribution to the world. It's the www that you see in front of all the websites and your email addresses and what have you. That's Tim Berners-Lee. He was the inventor, effectively, or the person nominated as being responsible for developing the internet. Now, I don't know if you can even... I find it difficult to comprehend developing the internet or having the thought process that develops the internet that says, I'm going to find a way to connect all of the information in the world in some way so that everybody can access it just like that. That's a pretty mind-boggling thought when you think about it. Now, I don't know how that happened. I have no idea what the process for making that happen was. I'm sure it was complex and interesting, but it started with a thought process. It started by saying, what if we could access information anywhere, anytime, any information? I'm old enough to remember having to go to the library to find information. You'd go to the library and you'd search through the index cards and you'd find the book number you were looking for, and you'd walk down the aisle with your little card and you'd look for the rows and the book, and you'd find the book, then you had to leaf through. It was a very slow process, to get information. That's changed enormously, and it changed because one person had a vision to create something extraordinary. So there's a couple of historical big thinkers, and I want to share those with you to inspire you to think big in your business and not limit yourself in terms of the thought processes that will help you drive your business growth. So why do we resist thinking big? Why do we limit ourselves and hold ourselves back? I'm sure you've had the experience of that little voice in the back of your head that says, I don't think I can do that, or that's just too big a project to take on board right now. We all do it, it's quite natural, but I think it's important if we're going to grow our business and achieve something really special that we actually resist that temptation. So a couple of reasons we do this. Well, perhaps let's do this little exercise. Complete this sentence for me, if you will. If I only had more money, for instance. If I only had more time. If only I could find the right people. These are things that we hear regularly when we talk to business owners and we say, well, what are you doing? What are your plans for growth? And these are some of the reasons that they put forward, and they say, well, look, if I could find the right people, if I had more time and more money, I could do things. We've already seen that there are mechanisms now that actually make those things much easier for you. So in some respect, we don't really buy these. The other one is, I just don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the capability to do what I want to do, and I don't know how. So I don't know where to start, or how to get rolling. This is one of my favorites, and I don't want to offend any accountants out there, but my accountant said we should budget for 5%. Accountants, if I can generalize, are typically quite conservative people. So they might say to you, look, don't aim for too big, just have a nice steady growth curve, which is not bad advice, but we want to stretch our thinking in this situation and see if we can push past that. And the other big one that stops us is, what if I get it wrong? What if I fail? I'm sure you've heard this many times, but I'll reinforce the point just in case, okay? Failure is a key part of being in business. In fact, if you're not failing, you're not doing anything. You're certainly not doing anything new and innovative if you're not failing. So I don't mean failing entirely, of course. We don't want you to fail in your business, obviously. But little failures along the way actually teach us things. They teach us what works and what doesn't work. They give us the opportunity to refine and implement new ways of doing things. So failing is actually quite important. In effect, these things that we've just talked about really are excuses, and we all use these excuses to stop ourselves from moving forward. So we need a way to break through that. And you know what? If you do get it wrong, it's not the end of the world. Some of you might recognize this iconic tower in Italy. This is the Tower of Pisa, but not just the Tower of Pisa. It's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. True? Do you think they designed it leaning? I don't think so. It was a mistake, For some reason, the tower is falling over very slowly, basically. Now, here's a question for you. How many people do you think would visit the Tower of Pisa if it wasn't leaning? I don't know if you've been to Italy, but I would reckon there are lots of towers, okay? Lots of things to see. This has become iconic because effectively it's been born from an error.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download Brin, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit brin.ai or search the App Store today.